What if I told you that there is a force inside you powerful enough to turn almost any dream into reality? A force so intense that Carl Jung saw it as the very foundation of human creativity. Willpower, transformation, and the instinct that shapes your entire psychological life. It rises from the deepest layers of the unconscious, influencing what you desire, what you attract, and even the person you eventually become. Yet most people waste it every single day without realizing it. Jung believed that this inner force, when directed instead of scattered, becomes one of the greatest engines of personal transformation. It affects your clarity, your focus, your emotional resilience, your magnetism, and your ability to pursue what truly matters. And the most surprising part is that you've carried this energy your entire life, but no one taught you how to use it. So here's the real question. What could your life become if you finally learned to channel this energy with intention instead of letting it leak through impulses, habits, and desires that lead nowhere? Today, you're going to discover a side of yourself that has been waiting to be awakened. There's something moving inside you right now. It's not just a thought or a feeling. It's deeper than that. Jung spent decades studying this force, and what he discovered changed everything we thought we knew about human potential. He called it libido, but this wasn't about sex in the way most people think. This was about the raw, untamed energy that fuels every single thing you do. Think about the last time you felt truly alive. Maybe it was when you were chasing a goal that consumed you, or when you felt so drawn to someone or something that nothing else mattered. That pull, that intensity, that's what we're talking about. Jung realized that this energy doesn't just show up in romantic or physical attraction. It shows up when you're building something meaningful, when you're creating art, when you're solving a problem that keeps you up at night, when you're fighting for something you believe in. Most people go through life thinking this energy only belongs in one place. They think it's just about physical desire, about bodies, about a purely biological urge. But that's the trap. When you limit this force to only one expression, you're cutting yourself off from the most powerful tool you have for transformation. Jung saw that the same energy driving you toward another person could be redirected toward building an empire, writing a masterpiece, discovering scientific truths, or becoming the version of yourself you've always imagined. This energy is neutral. It doesn't care what you use it for. It just wants to move, to express itself, to create. The problem is that we've been taught to suppress it, ignore it, or let it spill out in ways that leave us empty. You feel it building up inside you, but instead of directing it somewhere meaningful, it gets wasted on distractions. Quick fixes, mindless scrolling, shallow pleasures that fade within minutes. Jung noticed something fascinating in his patients. The ones who were struggling the most, the ones stuck in depression or anxiety or feeling completely lost, they all had one thing in common. Their life force wasn't flowing. It was either blocked, repressed, or leaking out in destructive patterns. And the moment they learned to recognize this energy and channel it consciously, everything shifted. Their clarity returned. Their motivation came back. They started moving toward their goals with a focus they'd never experienced before. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just about willpower or discipline. You can't force this energy to go where you want through sheer effort. Jung understood that the unconscious holds the key. This force rises from the deepest part of you, from a place you can't control directly. It's connected to your instincts, your archetypes, your shadow, everything hidden beneath the surface. That's why simply trying harder doesn't work. You have to learn the language of your unconscious. You have to understand what this energy wants, where it's trying to go, and how to work with it instead of against it. When you start paying attention, you notice patterns. You notice that certain activities make you feel more alive while others drain you completely. You notice that some desires lead somewhere real while others leave you feeling hollow. You notice that this energy has a kind of intelligence, a direction it wants to move in. Jung called this the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are instead of who others expect you to be. And this inner force is what drives that entire journey. The ancient traditions understood this long before Jung. Eastern philosophies talked about qi. They knew that sexual energy was just one expression of a much larger life force. They developed practices to cultivate it, refine it, and direct it toward spiritual awakening. Jung studied these traditions and realized they were describing the same psychological reality he was seeing in his work. Different words, same truth. So what happens when you actually start working with this energy consciously? First, you become aware of how much of it you've been wasting. You start noticing the leaks, the habits that drain you, the patterns that keep you stuck. Then you begin experimenting with redirection. Instead of letting the energy dissipate through impulse, you hold it, contain it, and consciously channel it towards something that matters to you. This isn't about repression or denial. It's about transformation. Athletes know this instinctively. They channel their aggression and competitive drive into performance. Artists channel their emotional intensity into creation. Entrepreneurs channel their restless energy into building something from nothing. They're all working with the same fundamental force, just expressing it differently. And the more consciously you direct it, the more powerful it becomes. Jung believed that most psychological problems stem from blocked or misdirected energy. When this force can't flow naturally, it turns against you. It becomes anxiety, depression, addiction, compulsion. But when it flows freely in a direction aligned with your deepest self, you feel unstoppable. You wake up with purpose. You move through obstacles that would have stopped you before. You become magnetic to opportunities and people who resonate with what you're creating. This is the foundation everything else builds on. Before you can fulfill any desire, before you can create anything meaningful, before you can become who you're meant to be, you have to understand and work with this energy. It's not optional. It's the fuel that powers your entire psychological life. And once you truly grasp what it is and how it works, everything changes. 2. Why you feel restless but never satisfied. Something's been bothering you for a while now. You can't quite put your finger on it, but there's this constant feeling that something's missing. You achieve things, you get what you wanted, but the satisfaction never lasts. Within days, sometimes hours, you're back to feeling empty, searching for the next thing that might finally fill that void. This isn't just you. Jung recognized this restlessness as one of the most fundamental experiences of being human. Here's what's really happening. That energy we talked about, it's always moving, always seeking expression. It's like water that needs to flow downhill. When it can't find a natural channel, it becomes turbulent, chaotic, unfocused. You feel it as restlessness, as anxiety, as a vague sense that you should be doing something but you don't know what. This discomfort isn't a problem to fix. It's information. It's your psyche telling you that your energy isn't going where it needs to go. Most people try to quiet this feeling by feeding it short-term pleasures. They scroll through social media for hours. They binge-watch shows. They chase fleeting romantic encounters. They buy things they don't need. They eat when they're not hungry. They drink to numb the discomfort. And for a moment, it works. The restlessness fades. But it always comes back, usually stronger than before. Why? Because you're not actually addressing what your psyche is asking for. Jung discovered that this restlessness intensifies when you're living out of alignment with your deeper self. When you're following a path that doesn't truly belong to you, when you're chasing goals that society told you to want instead of what you actually need, when you're suppressing parts of yourself to fit in or be accepted, your life force rebels against this. It creates discomfort to get your attention, to tell you something's wrong, to push you toward change. Think about the people you know who seem genuinely content, not the ones posting perfect lives online, but the ones who actually radiate a sense of inner peace and purpose. What do they have in common? They're not necessarily rich or famous or conventionally successful, but they're aligned. Their energy is flowing in a direction that feels right to them. They're creating something, building something, contributing something that comes from their core. The restlessness has transformed into focused drive. This is where most people get stuck. They think satisfaction comes from getting what they want, so they chase after goals, relationships, achievements, believing that once they reach them, the restlessness will finally stop. But Jung knew better. He understood that true satisfaction doesn't come from external acquisition. It comes from internal alignment. It comes from allowing your energy to flow toward its natural expression instead of constantly redirecting it toward what you think you should want. Your psyche has an agenda. It wants you to become whole, to integrate all the scattered parts of yourself, to live authentically instead of performing a role. But your ego has a different agenda. It wants safety, approval, comfort, predictability. These two forces are constantly in conflict, and that conflict is what you experience as restlessness. You feel torn between what you think you should do and what something deeper is calling you toward. The modern world makes this worse. We're surrounded by endless options, infinite distractions, constant stimulation. Your energy gets pulled in 1,000 different directions every single day. Each notification, each advertisement, each social media post is designed to capture your attention and redirect your focus. No wonder you feel scattered. No wonder you can't seem to settle into anything deeply. Your life force is being fragmented into smaller and smaller pieces until there's nothing left with enough power to actually create change. Jung noticed that his patients who suffered from this chronic dissatisfaction often had rich inner lives that they were completely ignoring. They had dreams full of powerful symbols and messages, but they never paid attention. They had creative impulses they dismissed as impractical. They had intuitions about their path that they overrode with logic and fear. Their restlessness was their psyche screaming at them to wake up, to listen, to honor what was trying to emerge from within. Here's the uncomfortable truth. That restlessness you feel isn't going to disappear by achieving more, acquiring more, or experiencing more pleasure. It's going to disappear when you finally stop running from it and start listening to what it's trying to tell you. When you sit with the discomfort instead of immediately trying to escape it, when you ask yourself honestly what your energy actually wants to create instead of what you've been told it should create, this requires courage because the answer might not make logical sense. It might not fit into your current life plan. It might require you to change direction, to let go of things you've invested years into, to disappoint people whose approval you've been chasing. But Jung was clear about this. The cost of ignoring your deeper calling is far greater than the cost of following it. When you suppress your authentic path, you don't just feel restless, you start dying inside. Your passion fades. Your creativity dries up. You become a shell of who you could be. The path forward isn't about eliminating restlessness. It's about understanding what it's pointing you toward. Your energy wants to move somewhere specific. It has a natural gradient, a direction it flows most powerfully. When you discover that direction and align your life with it, the restlessness doesn't disappear completely, but it transforms. It becomes creative tension instead of anxious discomfort. It becomes the drive that pulls you forward instead of the weight that holds you back. This is why Jung emphasized self-knowledge above everything else. You can't align with your deeper path if you don't know what it is. You can't channel your energy effectively if you don't understand where it wants to go. The work of discovering this isn't comfortable. It means facing parts of yourself you've been avoiding. It means admitting that maybe you've been on the wrong path. It means accepting that true satisfaction requires vulnerability, authenticity, and the willingness to be different from everyone around you. 3. The mistake that drains your life force. there's one pattern that destroys more potential than anything else. Jung saw it repeatedly in his work, and once you understand it, you'll see it everywhere. People take their most powerful creative energy and scatter it mindlessly across 100 different shallow pursuits. They leak it out through habits they're not even aware of. They give it away to things that don't matter, and then they wonder why they feel exhausted, unmotivated, unable to make real progress on what actually counts. The mistake isn't wanting pleasure or experiencing desire. The mistake is confusing temporary release with genuine fulfillment. Your body and psyche are designed to seek pleasure. That's natural. That's healthy. But somewhere along the way, we've lost the distinction between pleasure that nourishes and pleasure that between experiences that build your energy and experiences that drain it, between genuine satisfaction and hollow distraction. If you feel ready to dive deeper into your own mind and balance both your light and shadow, explore the SIM method. It's a practical guide that helps you awaken your inner strength in just 5 minutes a day. The link is waiting for you in the first pinned comment. Every time you reach for your phone out of boredom, every time you satisfy an urge without thinking about it, every time you choose the easy comfort over the meaningful challenge, you're making a choice about where your energy goes. Most people make these choices unconsciously, hundreds of times per day, and each one seems insignificant in the moment. But they add up. They create patterns, and those patterns shape your entire life. Jung understood that the psyche operates on a principle of energy conservation. You have a finite amount of life force available at any given time. When you invest it in one direction, you have less available for others. This seems obvious, but most people live as if their energy is unlimited. They try to do everything, be everything, pursue every impulse, and they end up accomplishing nothing meaningful because their force is spread so thin that it can't generate enough power to create real change. Think about a river. When water flows in one direction with focus and intensity, it can carve through solid rock. It shapes landscapes. It creates canyons. But when that same water spreads out into a shallow marsh, it loses all its power. It stagnates. It becomes unable to move anything. Your energy works the same way. When you concentrate it, when you channel it towards something specific, it becomes unstoppable. When you scatter it, it becomes useless. The modern world is designed to scatter your energy. Social media pulls you in 100 different directions. Streaming services offer endless content to consume. Dating apps provide infinite options for connection. Shopping platforms show you thousands of things you could buy. Every website wants your attention. Every app wants your engagement, and all of it is engineered to be just stimulating enough to keep you coming back, but not satisfying enough to actually fulfill you. This creates a devastating cycle. You feel the urge for something. You get a quick hit of stimulation or pleasure. Your brain releases a tiny burst of dopamine, and then it's gone. Within minutes, you're looking for the next hit. Your energy isn't flowing toward anything meaningful. It's just being bled out drop by drop through microdoses of stimulation that lead nowhere. You end each day exhausted, but with nothing substantial to show for it. Jung would say this is a form of unconscious living. You're not making real choices. You're just reacting to impulses and external triggers without any awareness of what's actually happening. Your energy is being stolen from you, and you're not even noticing. The worst part is that this pattern becomes normalized. You look around and see everyone else doing the same thing, so it must be fine. But just because something is common doesn't mean it's healthy or sustainable. Here's what makes this particularly dangerous. When you waste your energy on shallow pursuits, you're not just losing that energy. You're also training your psyche to expect immediate gratification. You're rewiring your brain to crave quick hits instead of deep satisfaction. You're weakening your ability to focus, to persist, to tolerate discomfort, to work towards something meaningful over time. Every time you choose the easy pleasure, you make it harder to choose the difficult growth. The antidote isn't becoming some rigid, pleasure-denying ascetic. Jung never advocated for that. He understood that the body and its desires are sacred parts of being human. The solution is consciousness. It's about becoming aware of where your energy is actually going. It's about recognizing the difference between choices that build you up and choices that tear you down. It's about learning to say no to the 100 small leaks so you have enough power to say yes to what truly matters. This requires brutal honesty with yourself. You have to look at your actual behaviors, not your intentions or ideals. How much time do you really spend on your phone each day? How often do you engage in habits that leave you feeling worse afterward? How many of your pursuits are genuine expressions of who you are versus attempts to fill a void or escape discomfort? Most people avoid these questions because the answers are uncomfortable, but discomfort is where growth begins. When you start plugging the leaks, something interesting happens. You notice you have more energy available than you thought. Tasks that seemed impossible suddenly become manageable. Goals that felt distant start moving closer. You develop a kind of momentum that compounds over time. This is what Jung meant by psychological transformation. You're not becoming a different person. You're finally accessing the power that was always there, but was being drained away through unconscious patterns. The people who create extraordinary things aren't superhuman. They don't have some special gift that you lack. What they have is focus. They've learned to concentrate their energy instead of scattering it. They've developed the discipline to channel their life force toward their work instead of letting it leak out through distracting impulse. And that concentrated energy becomes the difference between dreaming about possibilities and actually bringing them into reality. This is the mistake that keeps most people stuck. Not lack of talent, not lack of opportunity, not even lack of desire. It's the constant, unconscious draining of the very force they need to create change. And the tragedy is that it's so easy to fix once you see it clearly. You don't need to acquire something new. You just need to stop throwing away what you already have. For how desire becomes creation. There's a specific moment when everything changes. It's the moment when the energy of wanting something transforms into the energy of building something. Most people never experience this shift. They stay trapped in a cycle of wanting, wishing, hoping, but never actually creating. Jung understood that this transformation isn't automatic. It requires a specific internal process that turns raw desire into focused creative force. Desire by itself is just potential energy. It's like gasoline sitting in a tank. It has power, but it's not doing anything yet. For it to become useful, it needs to be channeled through an engine, transformed into motion, directed toward a destination. Your psyche is that engine. But most people never learn how to use it. They feel the desire, they feel the wanting, but they don't know how to convert it into action that produces results. Jung discovered that this conversion happens through imagination. Not fantasy or daydreaming, but active imagination. This is the process of taking your desire and giving it form, shape, detail. Instead of just wanting success, you imagine exactly what that success looks like, how it feels, what changes in your daily life when you have it. You make it vivid and specific in your mind. This isn't positive thinking or manifestation magic. This is psychological engineering. When you engage in active imagination, you're creating a psychological blueprint. Your unconscious mind doesn't distinguish clearly between imagined experiences and real ones. When you vividly imagine achieving something, your psyche starts organizing itself around that image. It begins to notice opportunities you were blind to before. It starts generating ideas and solutions you couldn't access when the desire was vague and undefined. The energy that was just swirling around aimlessly now has direction. But imagination alone isn't enough. Jung emphasized that this energy must eventually find expression in the physical world. The image in your mind has to be matched by action in reality. This is where most people fail. They imagine, they visualize, they feel inspired, but then they don't do anything with it. The energy builds up with nowhere to go, and eventually it turns into frustration, anxiety, or depression. Creation requires both the internal vision and the external manifestation. This is where discipline enters the picture. Not the punishing, willpower-driven discipline most people think of, but something more like consistency born from genuine desire. When your imagination is truly aligned with what your deeper self wants, action doesn't feel like forcing yourself. It feels like allowing something to flow through you. You're not pushing the river, you're removing the obstacles that were blocking it. Think about how a sculptor works. They don't force the statue into existence through pure effort. They have a vision of what's hidden in the stone, and they carefully remove everything that isn't part of that vision. Creation works the same way. You have a vision of what you want to bring into being. Your job is to consistently remove the obstacles, the distractions, the fears, the old patterns that stand between the vision and its realization. Each action you take is like removing another piece of unnecessary stone. Jung noticed that people who successfully transform desire into creation all share certain characteristics. They hold the vision clearly in their imagination while simultaneously staying grounded in present action. They don't get lost in fantasy, and they don't get so caught up in doing that they lose sight of why they're doing it. They maintain this dual awareness of the goal and the process. The vision pulls them forward while the daily actions move them closer. This also requires patience, which might be the hardest part. In a world of instant gratification, the idea of working towards something for months or years without immediate results feels almost impossible. Your desire wants satisfaction now. Your ego wants proof that it's working. But genuine creation operates on a different timeline. Trees don't grow overnight. Buildings aren't constructed in a week. The most valuable things take time to develop, and your ability to stay committed during that time determines whether your desire ever becomes real. There's another crucial element Jung emphasized. Your creation must be authentic to who you are. If you're trying to build something because you think you should, or because others expect it, or because it looks good from the outside, your energy won't fully commit. Part of you will always resist. But when what you're creating genuinely reflects your deeper nature, when it's aligned with your authentic path, the energy flows naturally. You still face obstacles and challenges, but you meet them with a kind of determination that doesn't require constant motivation. This is why self-knowledge is so critical to the creative process. You can't create something authentic if you don't know who you authentically are. You can't channel your energy effectively if you're unclear about where it naturally wants to flow. The work of understanding yourself, of integrating your shadow, of becoming conscious of your unconscious patterns. All of this directly serves your ability to turn desire into reality. When this process works correctly, when desire successfully transforms into creation, something profound happens in your psyche. You experience a kind of fulfillment that shallow pleasures can never provide. Because you're not just consuming something that already exists, you're bringing something new into the world. You're leaving a mark. You're proving to yourself that you have the power to shape reality according to your vision. This builds confidence that goes far deeper than surface levels. Jung believed that the drive to create is one of the most fundamental aspects of being human. It's how we make meaning. It's how we transcend our limitations. It's how we participate in something larger than our individual existence. When you successfully channel your desire into creation, you're not just achieving a goal. You're fulfilling a psychological need that runs to the core of what makes us human. You're answering the call of your deeper self to bring something unique into being that could only come through you. This is the bridge between wanting and having, between dreaming and achieving, between potential and actualization. Desire provides the fuel, imagination provides the direction, action provides the mechanism, consistency provides the power, authenticity provides the sustainability, and when all of these elements align, You become someone who doesn't just wish for things. You become someone who creates them. 5. The daily practice that changes everything. Everything we've discussed comes down to this. Knowledge without application changes nothing. You can understand these concepts intellectually and still live the same scattered, unfulfilled life you've always lived. Real transformation requires daily practice, repeated consistently until it becomes your new normal. Jung emphasized that psychological change doesn't happen through sudden insight alone. It happens through sustained effort over time. The practice isn't complicated, but it is demanding. It starts with awareness. Each morning, before you do anything else, take time to check in with yourself. Not with your phone, not with the news, not with other people's demands, with yourself. Feel into your body. Notice your energy level. Become aware of any desires or impulses rising up. This simple act of conscious awareness is already different from how most people begin their day. Once you've established awareness, make a deliberate choice about where your energy goes today. What's the one thing that truly matters? What action would move you closer to what you're actually trying to create? This becomes your anchor. Throughout the day, when you notice your energy being pulled elsewhere, you return to this anchor. The next element is containment. Notice when impulses arise and choose not to immediately act on them. When you feel the urge to check your phone, pause. When you want to indulge in a habit drains you, pause. That pause is where your power lives. In that space between impulse and action, you have the opportunity to make a different choice. As you practice containment, the energy you would have spent on impulses doesn't disappear. It builds, it accumulates. You start feeling more alive, more focused, more capable. This is what happens when you stop the leaks. The force that was draining away stays with you, available for what actually matters. Physical practices support this work. Movement helps energy circulate instead of stagnating. Walking, stretching, anything that gets you out of your head and into your body. Solitude is essential too. Regular time away from other people's energy and expectations, where you reconnect with your deeper self. Consistency matters more than intensity. 10 minutes every single day beats one intense session per month. The daily repetition rewires your neural pathways. It builds new habits. Over weeks and months, these small choices compound into massive changes. So here's what it comes down to. You now know what most people will never understand. You know that the force you've been wasting could transform your entire existence. You know the patterns that drain you and the practices that concentrate your power. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will it become another interesting idea you forget by tomorrow? Or will it become the turning point where everything changed? The energy is already inside you. It's been there your whole life, waiting. The only question that matters now is whether you'll finally stop throwing it away and start using it to become who you were always meant to be. Jo, ur, move.